WrestleManiacs, Maniacs. This is the podcast. It's called WrestleManiacs. Adam, Donald, Indian Josh. Then now together forever in the sun. WrestleManiacs. This is the podcast. It's called WrestleManiacs. WWE, AEW, TNA, JPW. WrestleManiacs.
Hey, WrestleManiacs, this is your friend Josh here again at WrestleIn Podcast on Twitter. And hey, I am back, folks. Again, sorry for not being able to do NXT and SmackDown last week. I was able to do Clash at the Castle as well as Monday Night Raw with the Wyatt 6-6. Unfortunately, had a death in my family, something not expected. I'll just say if you have any type of thoughts that, definitely aren't healthy, make sure that you call 911 or, speak to somebody because definitely it's important for mental health. So definitely just want to do a PSA right there. But again, I am back. Hey, Ram Jam again. Hey, again, thanks again always for following. Again, want to apologize again for being behind, but family things going on. But tonight we had Monday Night Raw, the follow-up to their crazy Wyatt 6-6 ending as of last week. And you know what, folks? Let's just get started, WrestleManiacs. So actually what we have is Michael Cole and Miz opening the show. Pat McAfee is not there, evidently, based upon, again, I haven't watched too much of the McAfee show, but my understanding is the Wyatt 6-6 are starting to mess with his production as well. So McAfee has taken the time away, evidently, even from Indianapolis, which is interesting, given that he played, I believe, for the Colts there. Correct me if I'm wrong. But again, interesting to see that for sure. But we start seeing kind of a little bit of action behind Michael Cole and The Miz, and we wonder who it is. We see somebody walk by the camera. Now, of course, most of us are thinking it's going to be maybe one of the Wyatt Sixes. They were talking about it at the time, but it is the recently quit Drew McIntyre shows up in the ring for a promo. He lets us know kind of what's going on. Ram Jam, my condolences. Thanks, Ram Jam. Again, we have him in the ring talking and basically just saying he's proud of himself for what he did to CM Punk. And basically says, how dare you, crowd, basically allow him to steal my moment and still chant his name. Basically, Drew, really, I hate to say, he's starting to kind of become the anti-hero in this, kind of the unsung. I don't even know if it's the uncelebrated hero, maybe, but he's not wrong. I mean, he's been screwed by Punk twice. Again, WrestleMania kind of deserved it, but can we say that he deserved it at Clash of the Castle? Not really sure. Talks about Money in the Bank and basically saying while Punk is out and taken out, essentially shows footage of Punk being taken out by McIntyre in an ambulance, basically saying, I'm going to win the Money in the Bank, and you're going to watch as I become world champion, sitting always on the injured list. So pretty much that's the declaration. He declares he's going to be winning in the Money in the Bank match, and essentially, Punk is gone, and he's happy, and he's back on the world title hunt. Let's see what Ram Jam's got to say. Drew McIntyre was almost like Bret Hart and Diesel. Yeah, that really is a comparison. The thing is always the same, right? There's nothing really new under the sun. It's what is old is new again, and, look, we're Ram Jam, 20-something years, I guess, since 94, 95 around the Bret Hart Diesel feud. So, wow, I just now realized that. That's crazy to think of 20 years ago. But yeah, so we have that with Drew McIntyre promo. Then we go to a security detail that is following Chad Gable as he arrives in the big giant Tahoe, essentially, because, as we saw last week, he was literally slumped over with a wound here. Essentially looked like he got shot, essentially. And, Triple H kind of talked about how, jokingly on Twitter, and I think it was on one of the other shows, that the universe tends to kind of run wild, but they had to let him know, hey, Chad Gable is okay. He is alive. There's no obits, no RIP. So, again, Chad Gable is cleared. And throughout the night, we'll kind of see if, Chad Gable, as you can tell as he walks in, is still afraid of what happened. Still kind of a little taken aback as to what happened last week. Definitely wasn't expecting that. So, again, he arrives with security almost a la Goldberg with 6 different security guards. And at the announcer's desk, we also have 2 security guards, one on each side of the booth to make sure that nothing happens to them. Then we go for an interview with Jackie Redmond interviewing Ludwig Kaiser, basically talking about how he's going to face Braun Breaker tonight and essentially show him who the boss is. Basically show him that, he is the better man, essentially the better athlete. And, just a typical Ludwig Kaiser's going to kick his ass type of deal. So that leads us actually to Braun Breaker versus Ludwig Kaiser. And, this match, I've got to say, for Indianapolis, funnily enough, I host a radio show that's based upon Indianapolis. I'm remote in Texas, but I run Indianapolis and been promoting this show. And, believe it or not, I thought it was weird the two heels were fighting each other. Again, I understand why for the Intercontinental Championship shot at Sami Zayn, not for this match, but just in general. And, Braun Breaker was over with the fans. I mean, again, they all knew he was a heel, but, versus Ludwig Kaiser, Braun Breaker came out the star here. He came out, again, as a kick-ass heel, did some amazing moves, and, really their match was good. It actually ended, which I thought was pretty smart. Braun Breaker had Kaiser down on the outside, via a belly to belly over the top rope. So Kaiser's kind of laid up against the steps. Essentially, Braun Breaker is going to jump and run and do a spear a la last week, but actually Kaiser moves, and actually Braun Breaker hits the steel steps. And so now what Kaiser's going to do is Kaiser's going to do his kick thing. So he runs around the ring, and as he's going into camera frame, boom, you see Sheamus all of a sudden come up with a knee to the face to Kaiser. So starts attacking Kaiser as they brawl. He's about to pick up Kaiser for a powerbomb. As he's about to powerbomb him through the announcer's table, Braun Breaker comes and spears him down. A really awesome move, I would have to say. And, basically Breaker stands tall again. And Calvin Terry talks about how he's so tired of everybody getting involved in his matches. And that'll play into a little bit something later. But I'm definitely liking, Kaiser versus Breaker versus Sheamus. Again, as weird as two heels and, versus each other. But, match was great. I mean, even with two heels, it was actually pretty good. We then go backstage to the Judgment Day, randomly playing WWE 2K24. Actually, it was JD and Finn. I'm not sure who. I believe JD was Rhea Ripley and Finn was Lita. So, of course, they were having a match. And there's Dom eating an entire really, and something that's funny, my son loves chicken nuggets. He's too. Just a giant plate of chicken nuggets, really, just sitting there just munching on them, watching them play. Damien comes in and is like, hey, what the heck is this, guys? And they're like, oh, well, they're gifts from Liv. So apparently Liv gave Dom chicken nuggets and also gave the Judgment Day of PlayStation 5 with WWE 2K24. So he's pretty much saying, you need to take care of this. This is over this. You're going to eventually get tired and mommy's going to kill you pretty much. Essentially all of a sudden Dom gets a text and he kind of does this type of look and turns it away from the camera. But the implication, especially Carlito going, oh, that's cool. Essentially, he got a racy photo from Dom. Dom got a racy photo from Liv Morgan. So definitely interesting times there in the Judgment Day. Let's see. Ram Jam going back. Braun Breaker is the only Steiner to ever win a singles title in WWE. You know what? You're right. I didn't think about that. You were totally right. Scott Steiner failed to win the World Heavyweight title in 2003. And again, they were tag champs back in the 90s. So yeah, that's pretty interesting history, especially given both Steiners are pretty popular. But the Steiners, for whatever reason, didn't fit in WWF in 94 or 95. I'm sorry, 93, excuse me. But, hey, again, history has to be made somehow, right? Especially in that bloodline. That's a really strong bloodline for the Steiners. So thanks, Ram Jam, for that. Anyways, back to what we were saying. As Dom goes to leave, essentially, Damien says, look, you guys need to take care of this Braun Strowman problem, and pretty much walks away. And they're like, yeah, Finn's like, yeah, we need to take care of this. Let's do this, guys. So as we go back to stage another place, Braun is actually banging on Pierce's door, basically saying, what the hell's going on here? I'm tired of people interrupting. All I want is a shot at Sami Zayn for his Intercontinental Championship. Then all of a sudden he turns around and there's Sami. And Sami basically says, look, you want a shot at my IC title anytime, anywhere, you name the place. And Braun Breaker says, hey, how about Money in the Bank? Let's fight it out. So we have a new match for Money in the Bank. We have Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental Championship. So a little different. Again, I'm curious to see if we're going to end up having Ludwig Kaiser and Sheamus playing to that, since Money in the Bank's, maybe 1 or 2 weeks away, I think, too. So should be interesting to see what we're going to be coming up with. Speaking of Money in the Bank, we up next have a women's Money in the Bank qualifying triple threat match with Lyra Valkyria versus Shayna Baszler versus Kairi Sane. And you know what, guys? I think this was actually a really good match. I really enjoyed this triple threat. These ladies worked hard. They made it an exciting match, and just the finishing sequence alone was great. Pretty much we had it to where Shayna Baszler had Lyra Valkyria in the Karafuda clutch. So Kairi Sane hits her insane elbow from the top rope, and then essentially onto Shayna Baszler, and essentially Lyra Valkyria hits her finisher and essentially wins the match. So she beats Kairi Sane to qualify for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match at Money in the Bank. So really good match here. I really was very surprised. I mean, again, given the talent, I wasn't surprised that they pulled it off, but I'm glad they got the time in order to get a really good match. So Will I say it's a Raw's greatest match, at least tonight? I'll be honest with you. Probably match of the night, to be honest with you, at least in my opinion. Well, I take that back. I don't know. Gosh, but Braun Breaker and Ludwig Kaiser was really good. For a clean finish, it was the match of the night, but for overall match, it's got to be Braun Breaker and Ludwig Kaiser. So, again, if you guys have different opinions, let me know. So anyways, we go back to backstage with Drew McIntyre with Adam Pearce, basically saying he demands to be put in the Money in the Bank based upon everything he's gone through. And Pearce essentially kind of was like, well, let me work on it. Let me see. Of course, Pearce is always the ineffective GM, as he usually is. His catchphrase I've kind of figured out now is, and that's official. I guess it's been a catchphrase for a while, but it's not caught on, of course, because it's so dorky. But again, typical Drew and Pearce thing. So, I imagine he'll be in the Money in the Bank. No surprise there. We then get Miss Liv Morgan coming out with an in-ring promo saying, Dominic. So again, I'm telling you what, this is going to get even probably more racy as we get to the Netflix era of WWE Raw. And I'm curious because Triple H just recently said in an interview that they're not going to have to worry about censorship at all on Monday Night Raw on Netflix. There's not going to be a holy moment or a blacked out moment. They're going to let everything just hang out and go. Now, again, how advertising is going to work, he says, I'm not really sure. NFL just tried it, so I guess that's going to be a new thing. But, look, if I'm going to get an unraw, uncensored, uncooked Raw, as we had back in the 90s, back from 93, let's go for it, guys, because, again, we're getting crazier and crazier. And look, WWE doesn't have to really do anything with the USA. They've got, 6 months left. So what is the USA going to do? Kick off one of their highest rated shows? WWE is going to start doing whatever the heck they want to, especially with this sort of adult implication of Liv getting on top of Dom and things like that, the sexual tension. So getting really interesting as we keep going towards the Netflix era. But again, as I say, as Liv's talking about Dom, Zelina interrupts and basically challenges for the Women's World Championship next week. Liv accepts. Dom comes out, tries to basically talk to Zelina, saying, look, I'm not here to help anybody. I'm just trying to keep it here. And essentially Liv starts attacking Zelina. They start brawling. Rey Mysterio comes out, basically pulls off Liv Morgan off of Zelina Vega. And for whatever reason, Dom just decides to push his dad down, and they have this little tense face off, I should say. And Dom leaves. Liv is, of course, in love with the fact that he pushed Rey Mysterio, basically saving her from Rey Mysterio, at least in her mind. So, we get this little bit more of a romance angle. And again, we're going to get the same tired Rey Mysterio versus Dominic Mysterio match next week on Monday Night Raw. A WrestleMania rematch, yes, but can I say they've had good matches? No. They're all right, but nothing to write home about. But hey, whatever gets the story going, right? That's how we do it. Let's see. Comment. Ram Jim says, I wish we would let Braun use the Steiner screwdriver as a finish. I know it's a pile driver type move. Hey, maybe. Again, as we keep going into the Netflix era, maybe that's something we'll see a lot more of. Tonight, let's just talk about it. Earlier in the match with the triple threat for the the women's Money in the Bank qualifying match, Shayna Baszler was going to hit a suplex on the apron, and I think Kairi Sane turned it into a brainbuster on the edge of the apron. So we're getting there, guys. We're getting there. So, again, as we continue, Pearce confirms that Gable in his backstage office is medically cleared to compete in the men's Money in the Bank triple threat match. He's okay, based upon whatever happened last week. So as we go backstage again, and Liv thanks Dom for the save, basically saying, it's because he likes her. And he's like, no, I just don't like my deadbeat dad. So not for her. Essentially, Liv Morgan is playing more mind games with Dom. But interestingly enough, she actually runs into R-Truth, who R-Truth says, oh, love's in the air. Tom and Nick Mysterio, they're playing hard to get, but I love a good love story. And basically Liv's like, well, really, if you want to help us out, really give us a tag team title match, the Judgment Day title match, and help me get Ray to fight Dom next week. So, again, pretty interesting nonetheless. So that goes for that. Next, we get the men's Money in the Bank qualifying triple threat match. Braun Strowman versus Chad Gable versus Bronson Reed. Chad Gable actually pulls out the win when the Judgment Day triple team, actually quadruple team, Braun Strowman down. And Chad Gable was able to hit a moonsault onto Bronson Reed and actually wins and qualifies for the Money in the Bank match at Money in the Bank. And then now all of a sudden, the Fiend type of electric thing happens, and smoke fills the ring, and Sister Abigail suddenly crawls up from the apron into the ring. Chad Gable disappears, and she actually has a box and gives it to Michael Cole. When we come back from break, it's a VHS tape, believe it or not, that's been revealed. And he's like, hey, look, for you kids that don't know, this is a VHS tape. We're going to see if we have a VHS player or a VCR to go and play this. And so sends it to a little production assistant to go to the back and play it. So interesting, I guess, but not really too much from the Wyatt 6-6 or so we thought. We then see Chad Gable backstage, basically still escaping, and runs into the locker room of Otis, Maxine, and Tozawa, basically saying, look, I'm sorry, I've seen the light. I'm sorry what I did to you guys. And Otis has said, look, I understand. We're sorry what happened to you. We're glad you're okay, but we're still done. And Maxine comes out and says, well, let me talk to him. You hurt Otis really bad. Let me work with him. As she shuts the door, he turns, and there's the Creed saying, hey, you need help with something? Are you okay? And he said, no, I'm not okay. So we're starting to plant the seeds of Chad Gable and the Creeds, which is going to be a great thing. Let's see. Ram Jam here says, hey, Dom resisted Rhea for a long time before he caved in. True. Latino Heat is not easily captured, apparently. Apparently, he likes to play hard to get, so go figure. We then go to a match with Caden Carter and Katana Chance versus our women's tag team champions, the Unholy Union. I'll be honest with you guys, this wasn't much of a match. It was really short, really over. Unholy Union basically dominated and won, which I think is the right call. I'm not really bought into Katana and Caden, essentially, as the party girls. It's kind of a tired gimmick at this point, so they need to repackage quickly, because to me, I was not upset by this match being over quickly. Interesting, more new tidbit. We actually have Damian Priest go into the Judgment Day locker room and seeing Liv Morgan actually leaving. Now, here's the interesting part. One, they've got an office or an actual official place to be, right, for World Champion, as I've been saying for weeks. Secondly, he expects to find Dom, but he finds Mr. Finn Balor in there instead, along with Liv Morgan. Now, we talk about the key card. Finn Balor took the key card a couple of weeks ago to make sure that Dom was protected. Now he's finding, Finn and Liv together. Damian Priest, of course, has questions. He's like, hey, man, look, she got us a tag team title shot. I got to thank her for it, essentially. Oh, that's all it is, huh? Yeah, that's all it is. So, interesting to say the least. So early when R-Truth was giving the title, Miz basically left, leaving Michael Cole to be the sole announcer. So he runs into Truth saying, Truth, what are you doing? Why are you giving them a title match? You hate Judgment Day. And he's like, no, Finn and me were cool, but it's JD, who was never part of the Judgment Day, that big-headed dude. And he basically said, love's in the air. They're like the Shrek story. So I got to help them out. So, of course, to Miz's chagrin, the match is our main event of Awesome Truth versus the Judgment Day, being Finn Balor and JD McDonough. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Up next, we have Damian Priest actually talking about the Money in the Bank title defense versus Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins, of course, comes out, interrupts him, basically saying, look, you want to one-up me last week by challenging me for the championship match. Now, Seth says this to Priest, I'm going to give a little bit of a wrinkle, a little bit of a flavor to the match. Here's what's going to happen. If Priest wins and retains the world title, Seth Rollins will not be able to challenge for the title again as long as Damian Priest is champion. However, if Seth wins, then Damian Priest has to leave the Judgment Day. Essentially, the issue was Damian Priest essentially wants it to be where Seth never has to challenge for the title because, look, it doesn't matter. The result's going to be the same in his mind. Damian Priest is always going to beat Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins says, look, you talk about being a champion and don't needing the Judgment Day's help. Well, you know what? Put your money where your mouth is. Essentially, if you lose, you leave the Judgment Day and you're on your own. What's interesting is a statement made by Damian Priest saying the Judgment Day need me more than I need them. Out in the ring for everybody to hear. Let's see. I think Finn gave Liv Morgan Dom's number. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, to me, they were talking about how that Liv got his number and Dominic didn't know. So good idea there. That's a great. I really didn't think about that, Ram Jam. Good thought there. Again, after that, as they agree, out comes our King of the Ring, Gunther, and basically just comes out and says, look, I'm looking forward to this match because may the best man win, but it doesn't matter who's going to win because whoever the best man win is between you two. When they face me at SummerSlam, I'll be the best man to win the World Heavyweight Champion. So basically, Gunther just says he's got next. So, again, simple with Gunther. Hasn't really done much the last couple of weeks. And, it's kind of good. We hadn't seen him in a little bit. So, again, the idea is that Gunther is always the threat coming at SummerSlam, no matter who wins the Money in the Bank. Then we finally get the interview or the tape played with Uncle Howdy actually interviewing Bo Dallas about the loss of his brother, Bray Wyatt, and essentially them being forgotten and what's planned ahead. Basically, he says it's the worst day of his life. He always wanted to be his brother. And Uncle Howdy asked Bo Dallas a question. Now, again, we don't know this is Bo Dallas at first. We see him talking to someone. We don't know who it is as of yet until the reveal that Bo Dallas is the one talking to Uncle Howdy. Again, kind of supernatural a little bit, but, they had a Three Faces of Foley discussion back in 97, so I'm not necessarily opposed to this type of thing. Uncle Howdy says, don't you think you're kind of, playing off your brother's legacy, essentially exploiting it. And he says, no, I don't think so. I think this is what wanted to be continued. So it was kind of a weird thing. I mean, the idea is, I guess, Bo Dallas going crazy after his brother's death and essentially saying, we're not going to be forgotten. We don't want to talk about it because Bray's gone, but we're going to still be here and be a force. So we're coming. And we made our point last week. And Uncle Howdy, in a kind of distorted voice, says, yes, we sure did. So kind of weird. I guess that's the idea. A little lackluster on the follow-up from last week. I'll be completely honest. I wasn't expecting that. But hey, the thing with the Wyatts seems like even Bo Dallas is going to have a long arcing story thread. So, I got to just put the trust in the system. Triple H has to know what he's doing somehow or another. So we'll see. We next finally get the Kofi Kingston versus Karrion Kross match with the idea that Xavier Woods and AOP and all of them are going to stay backstage. It's going to be mano a mano. Well, it's true that happened. But in the middle of the match, as Kofi was about to win, all of a sudden, Paul Ellering says, was it worth it, Kofi? Was it worth it? And we see the camera pan, and AOP is just beating the bejesus out of Xavier Woods in the back. That basically allows the distraction for Kofi to be hit by the final prayer by Karrion Kross. And Karrion Kross is the victor between Kofi Kingston and himself. So, interesting enough, I guess. We'll see where this goes. Next, we have the WWE World Tag Team Championship match, Awesome Truth versus Judgment Day of Finn Balor and JD McDonough. And, typically we have the run-ins with Carlito and as well as Dominic coming out. As they're coming out, they get basically tossed by R-Truth and Miz. Essentially, Braun Strowman, again, as we've seen before, comes out, chases those heels off. But we also have Liv Morgan still ringside, and what she gets up in the apron as Finn Balor is about to be beaten by R-Truth. She gets up on the apron and says, Truth, come give me a hug. Great job. Thanks for helping me out. As she hugs him, she all of a sudden smiles real big, gets a real serious face. Stun guns him on the top rope with his neck. Essentially hits the drop kick. Finn hits a drop kick on R-Truth into the corner. Coup de grace and new tag team champions, the Judgment Day of Finn Balor and JD McDonough. What's interesting, what I really think this is cool, is that JD actually was trained by Finn Balor because Finn Balor was actually his trainer that got him into wrestling. Same with Becky Lynch, as crazy as that is. So Finn Balor is the elder statesman with his young apprentice, his student, JD McDonough. So we're curious to see if they're going to build a feud after the Judgment Day thing's over between them two. But as we leave Raw, Judgment Day essentially has won, and Liv Morgan pops up behind Finn Balor. What's interesting is, again, is Finn Balor really with Liv Morgan this entire time? And really Dom is kind of just designed to screw with Rhea Ripley. So who knows what Finn's ulterior motives are here and Liv Morgan's. So that's it for our Monday Night Raw. Let's see. Ram Jim says, when Liv stun gunned R-Truth, it almost mirrored when Eve turned on Zack Ryder. Yeah, really, that's a great history lesson there. Yes, you're exactly right. I think she kicked him in the balls too, though. It seems like a WrestleMania, but we'll get there later on, of course, and maybe a retro review. Who knows? Again, that's it for Monday Night Raw. A pretty decent show, I guess. Wasn't great. I would say if you took out a lot of the backstage segments and kind of had a couple matches, again, one of the matches, Braun Breaker versus Ludwig Kaiser, pretty good, as well as the triple threat women's match. Everything else kind of just seemed overbooked and overdone. But, important thing is what are your thoughts on the show? I'd love to hear what your thoughts on the show are, as well as kind of what you guys are thinking. So always let me know what's going on and, what you think. Again, this is just one guy's opinion, okay? I mean, we're all WrestleManiacs. We all have differing opinions. Ram Jam's always good about that. And anybody else wants to comment in the comment section, hey, let me know. We'd love to hear from you guys as well. But again, if you will do us a favor, make sure to follow me at WrestleM Podcast on Twitter. I'm going to be a lot more active now again with family stuff. Last week, I hadn't really had time to be active, but I'm going to be back active again, starting with NXT tomorrow night, and as well heading towards Money in the Bank, SmackDown, and well as Raw. Let's see here what I got. I got somebody else. Oh, here we go. And I thought Rhea was going to come out. Yeah, that was the hope, but I think they're going to save that for either before SummerSlam or maybe even after SummerSlam. You never can tell, because if you think about it, the Judgment Day now has the world title. They have the tag team titles. They're missing the secondary title, the Intercontinental Championship. But look, it's almost like WrestleMania all over again. Tag champs, world champ, and now the women's world champion is not with them, but let's just say aligned with them. So it almost mirrors what WrestleMania is. And really, they could play into the fact that Liv really kind of helped the tag team titles come back to the Judgment Day and giving them kind of that post-WrestleMania victory. So curious to see where they go from there. But again, follow me on @RussellM Podcast. Make sure to tune in every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday night as we do our Raw, SmackDown, NXT reviews, as well as PLEs. We also got another review coming up of a super tape coming up here pretty soon, so be sure to look out for that. Follow us on the YouTube channel at the WrestleManiacs Podcast under the A+ Hero Report banner. Make sure also to follow at Rangers of Wrestling at @Dotala_ as well on Twitter, because she's got some great content as well. So again, for you guys and gals here, thanks for joining this evening. Thanks again for hanging out as always. Make sure to keep yourselves well fed and well up to date with all things wrestling. So I will see you guys tomorrow night on Tuesday NXT review. Otherwise, see you guys later and have a good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Thanks so much for watching.